It's becoming harder and harder in America in 2015 to demonize weed in the way that they did back in the 1950s, implying that it will destroy your body, it destroys communities. And I think that this was demonstrated very well earlier this week at a House Judiciary committee hearing on police reform when this interaction happened between a congressman and a police sheriff.
Sheriff Clarke, let me ask you this. You mentioned in your testimony that much of the population in the state and low federal prisons was for violent crime, and probably that's true, but in the federal system it's mostly for drug crime. There's not so much violent crime there, and that's where the drug situation really fills up the federal prisons. And you said that illegal drug use is the scourge of the black community, and it is a problem, and leads to a great deal of violent crime. Would you agree that marijuana possession is not the scourge of the black community and does not lead to violent crime the same way that meth, crack, cocaine, and heroin do?
No, I wouldn't agree with that at all.
Well, that's interesting, and I wished I had more time to talk to you. But thank you for allowing me this opportunity. And the defense attorney is not supposed to ask a question they don't know, but it was such an obvious answer, I just never thought I'd get that answer.
Literally laughing at him at a House Judiciary Committee meeting.
But
you can do that in Congress now.
Yeah, it
is a joke.
Right. Steve Cohen, that's Steve Cohen from Tennessee, from Memphis, who represents a primarily black district. Steve Cohen, a good friend of the Young Turks.
Oh, really?
A very good friend, a very good friend of Michael Schor, and one of the great guys in Congress. He was the guy who was caught texting a girl during the State of the Union, and it turned out to be his daughter.
Yes.
Except then it wasn't his daughter.
Oh, it wasn't.
But at the time, he did legitimately think it was his daughter. It just turned out that that woman is not his daughter. He learned,
yes,
it was a late, it turns out you have a 23-year-old daughter. And he was like, oh, great. And then he formed a relationship with her, and then it turned out, no, it wasn't his daughter.
Yeah. It happens to all of us.
Yeah, but initially there was this scandal, like it was creepy, but there was nothing.
Yeah.
Not even remotely creepy. He's a good, funny, amusing guy, and he legitimately was amused by this notion from this nonsense police chief that somehow marijuana is the scourge of the black community.
In the same way as, he didn't just say, is it as bad as other drugs? He says specifically meth, crack, heroin. The idea that it's as bad as that is so laughable. And that sheriff who, as I've pointed out before, apparently has trolled Jimmy Dore about the weed issue on Twitter, which is sort of funny. But the fact that he still thinks he can peddle that same sort of, like I said, it's like reefer madness, paranoia, and stupidity. And a congressman gets to laugh at them. That's what I love.
My brother took a really interesting course, because he does a ton of these crime stories for Dateline, and he did a course with the DEA. And including fun stuff like fake kicking down doors and
that's cool.
And they learn about all the manner in which they prosecute and how drugs are hidden. But and every part of it, he was into it and loved these guys and loved him. And my brother, who's I don't think ever, I would be amazed if he had ever put a marijuana cigarette to his lips. Amazed. In fact, I'm certain that he has not. But they still talk about it and they still use the term gateway drug. They still talk like it's 1955 and they're giving
smoke, don't they?
Yeah, and also, I don't think they believe it. But but they're not really allowed to. I mean, I don't know whether they don't believe it. I can't say into their hearts, but I know the guys running the class aren't allowed to say, yeah, this is nonsense. We're not going after marijuana anymore.
We're going to skip this part.
We're going to skip this part. But it's nuts. It doesn't make any sense. And at some point, the sheriff who's trolling Jimmy Dore and giving these nonsense answers, at some point he's going to lose this battle.
Yeah.
And that idea will drift away. It's already becoming much more insignificant and obscure than it ever has been.
Yeah, and I've read that in 2016 there's a possibility of legalization in something like 6 additional states or something like that. I mean, some of this is not written in stone just yet, but I mean that could be really significant. We already have great information coming out of definitely Colorado, possibly Washington. If we get a couple more states and they show that it's both generating a ton of money for schools and it's not leading to increased crime, it's going to be all the easier to laugh at these people on the national stage.